welcome to 4 Things You Should Know About Slash Chords, Part 2. Number 3, inversions. Most often, slash chords are indicating some type of an inversion of a chord. So let's look at the keyboard quickly here. To visualize an inversion, let's go back and do a little triad review. If you remember from an earlier session, if you were to take a C and stack in thirds, you'd get a C major, C, E, G. If you wanted to invert that, you would start with the E note, E, G, C. That's the first inversion. Second inversion is G, C, E. So those could be notated as a C with an E in the bass, or a C with a G in the bass. C/G. Now, of course, you can spread these out. You can take any note and bring it up or down an octave. They don't have to be in close position. You could take the C, for example, and drop it back down on the bottom. Now you have a spread or an open triad. If you wanted to look at a 7th chord, stacking in thirds, again, C, E, G, B, so you have a C major 7 here. To go to the first inversion, you would go up to the E note, the third of the chord, 5, 7, 1. First inversion. Second inversion is G, B, C, E. And then the third inversion you can do on a 7th chord would be 7, 1, 3, 5. B, C, E, G. Now, again, you can spread the 7th voicings out as much as you want as well. In fact, a very common voicing on guitar, which lays out really nicely, is a drop 2 voicing. And for a pianist, they can see that by going up to the second inversion of the chord and taking the second note from the top and dropping it down an octave, leaving that open sound. Lays out really nicely for guitarists on the neck. I'd like to dedicate this episode to loved ones who have been lost due to COVID-19. The song that we're looking at here, Time, is a great illustration of both the existential pain of saying goodbye, and also it's providing us some great examples of inversions that we're going to be dissecting here. Okay, in the first verse, we're starting out with an E flat chord. It's an add 9 chord. Here's one way you could play it, with the third on top. You go to the second chord, which is a C minor 6, but it uses that E flat, holds that in the bass. Now that's the pedal tone method that we talked about in the first video. And the great thing about this chord here is, first of all, it's an inversion of C minor 6. It's the first inversion because you have, if you had a C minor 6 here, if you go up to the third of that chord, 1, 2, 3, that's E flat. So you've got that nice juicy sounding chord there, but it's almost identical to an F9 chord. On the first half of the verse, you've got the line that says time flowing like a river, and it drops to what they say in the sheet music is an A diminished over C, then down to an A diminished. The bassist, I believe, goes all the way down to the F. So what you have, as I say, is a C minor 6 sounds and looks and acts a lot like an F9 chord, and it sort of outlines an F9 on the second chord. second half of the verse, the melody repeats with a different lyric. Now it's time beckoning me. And also, instead of going from the C minor 6 to an A diminished with a C in the bass, he uses a C diminished 7th or an A diminished 7th. It's the same chord. By taking the top note in the minor 6 I have voiced here as a G, drop that to a G flat, now you have a diminished 7th chord. And we'll go over some of these mysteries of the diminished chords in another session. But just know that when you invert a diminished 7th chord, it's the same chord. All the notes are just reshuffled each time. It's a symmetrical chord. It's pretty cool. But it creates a lot of tension, and Eric Wolfson uses that to then lead us into the last part of the verse. That beautiful descending line. Our first inversions of the minor and major chords. And if you go up to the third note of that chord, that's the first inversion. But we're spreading it out. I'm just doing a 3, 1, 5, 1. A spread voicing or an open voicing. And then you come down here to an A flat minor with a C flat in the bass. So
what's up with the C flat?
What, is there such a thing? Why don't you just call it a B? Well, the reason is that's an enharmonic spelling. Enharmonics mean it can be the same note, it's just spelt two different ways. And in the context of an A flat minor chord, it's the third, the flat 3 of the chord, C flat. So that's why sometimes in context you have odd enharmonic spelling. Well, we're coming to a close, and we're going to look at number 4. An important point to remember is that slash chords can sometimes be an efficient way to notate a chord, especially if it's a particular voicing that you like the sound of. There are some specific voicings for guitarists that sound terrific, can be captured in a simple slash chord notation. For example, if you take a D and put a G under it, that makes a G major 9 with no third, and it's a great sounding chord. You could also play that voicing up here, take your D up here, put a G under it. Sounds beautiful. Another example of that would be to take a B flat 2, which is this chord, B flat sus2, or B flat 2 sometimes called, with a D in the bass. So I hope that makes a little sense. You've got a B flat 2 or a B flat sus2 with a D in the bass. B flat 2 slash D indicates a B flat add 9 in its first inversion. So as we close, one final note I'd like to point out is that the chord function can change depending upon what you have under it, as we've said, and that's important to remember. And in the next episode, we're going to do a little lab experiment, and we're going to move the bass line all the way around underneath a standard triad and see what the heck we get. Okay, so you don't want to miss that. Until next time, salud. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Can't count.